Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast we invented with the best of intentions, but which stopped working a while ago, and really, if you haven't learned to just avoid it at this point, it's on you to clean up the mess. This week, the Gremlins versus John McClane. John McClane reaches into the plane's overhead compartment, briefly exposing his sidearm in the process. "It's okay, I'm a cop," he reassures the man beside him. "Trust me, I've been doing this for 11 years. His fellow passenger seems somewhat less than reassured, possibly because of the hissing and growling sounds coming from inside the large box McClane pulls down. Man, whatever is in that thing really needs to learn the fist with your toes trick. It's making so much noise that McClane can't even stop to share a weirdly erotic glance with the flight attendant before deplaning. John really doesn't want to talk about what's in the box, now rattling loudly in the backseat of his limousine, but his driver, Argyle, will not stop asking about it. Finally, McClane gives in to his loquacious interrogator. "It's a present for my kids," he volunteers. Argyle laughs. "You hate your kids that much, huh?" "It just needs training or a vet or something," John says. "It was kind of cute before. I got it in Chinatown back in New York. It's called a mogwai." Is it mogwai?
Mogwai.
It's called a mogwai.
That's how the white people pronounce it.
Yeah,
That's how the white people pronounce it.
And we're mogwai, and we're white people. We say mogwai.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I don't know. That movie was written by white people. Has a bunch of white people.
I mean, white people invented it, so I feel like they get to name it.
Okay, I mean, according to Dan, it does mean...
It is a Chinese word.
It's a Chinese word, so I assume it's probably not pronounced like that, but whatever.
I don't care. It's called a mogwai. Argyle eyes the box skeptically in the rearview mirror. Whatever's inside is now scratching the walls and screaming like a banshee. "You said it was cute before? Before what? You try to neuter it?" McClane sighs deeply. "The guy who sold it to me said there were 3 rules. Doesn't like the light, sunlight kills it, it doesn't need water and should never get wet, and I should never ever feed it after midnight." Argyle laughs again. "You fed it after midnight, didn't you?" "You're very fast, Argyle." Soon the limo arrives at Nakatomi Plaza, workplace of McClane's estranged wife Holly. John has no idea how their reunion is going to play out, so Argyle agrees to wait for him in the garage. However, he absolutely refuses to let John leave the box with a mogwai in the back seat. That crazy animal is McClane's responsibility. Upstairs at the holiday party, John leaves the box in an unoccupied side room and goes off to try and salvage his marriage. But unbeknownst to him, his relationship with Holly is the least of his concerns tonight, for the creature snarling inside that box is no ordinary mogwai, but the legendary Hans Grublin. If your security system goes on the fritz, or all the doors start locking at the same time, or your hired guards look like they may have been replaced by European mercenaries, before you call the FBI, turn on all the lights. Check all the elevators and air vents, look inside all the John Phillips suits because you never can tell. There just might be a Grublin in your skyscraper. As Holly and John get into one of their standard fights in the next room, Grublin makes his move, bursting out of the box to reveal himself as a red-eyed, sharp-toothed, brilliantly puppeted gremlin. Holly is asked to make a speech and leaves John alone. Grublin, hissing in triumph, dashes into the midst of the party, dodging through a sea of shitty human legs, and leaps into the fountain. The water begins to bubble and steam, boiling over with blue and green smoke. The partygoers scream. 11 new gremlins spring forth from Grublin's body and begin shrieking, "Mach schnell, mach los!" McClane, now tragically shoeless, grips his pistol and watches from the doorway as the gremlins arrive to the party in the same condition that many of their well-dressed human victims are about to find themselves in. Fashionably late. Grublin and his minions quickly take control. One of them, a particularly intelligent one named Matthias, is able to hack the security system and lock down the entire building, while a few others eat the downstairs security team. Normally, this would be about the time for the gremlins to do what the gremlins do best, which in this case would mean taking this party to the next level, baby! Unfortunately, McClane has escaped, and Grublin can't relax enough to have any fun while that douchebag is still running loose. Does he even realize how terrible air travel is for pets? Does he? That was a flight from New York City to Los Angeles with 2 layovers, you unbelievable bastard! Hans Grublin's ears are very sensitive and they pop 3 times! 3 times! Oh, you're gonna get got! John McClane is once again trapped in the Nakatomi building with no shoes and a single pistol. Only this time, it's not thieves pretending to be terrorists he's up against, but a cadre of crazy puppet monsters splitting their time between hunting him down and trying to keep an eye on their human hostages / party guests. Both sides have until sunrise to eliminate the other and regain control of the building. So, the question we need to answer is, do the Gremlins die easy? Or do they...
Not die easily? Oh.
Die hard is the answer.
Oh.
Although actually, since this is a battle of holiday films, yes they are. Yes, both of them, shut the fuck up. You can't take this from my people. The real question is this. Can John McClane miraculously survive for 8 full hours even though he only has enough bullets to last for 1? Or will the Gremlins tear through their competition like spitting dreidels of death? This is a Hanukkah episode, isn't it? Is this a Christmas episode? I thought it was... I mean, it's airing during Hanukkah. I'm just saying, I thought... Okay, well, I was just gonna tell you the answer, because I, know about Hanukkah and stuff, but if it's a Christmas episode, I guess I don't know, so, I'll just go ahead and be your judge for this match. I'm Miles Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson. No relation. Representing John McClane are the Fly in the Ointment, Dan Mulcairn.
Now I have a flashlight. Ho, ho, ho.
And the Monkey in the Wrench, Claire Mulcairn.
Where there's a Bruce Willis, there's a Bruce Wayless. Although now it's occurring to me that I should have said, I'm Special Agent Mulcairn, this is Special Agent Mulcairn, no relation.
It's alright, you didn't step on mine, so it's all good.
Yeah.
And of course, the inside joke for mine is, if I had taken my dad's name as is traditional, I would be Miles Johnson.
Oh, that is an extremely inside joke.
Look at that little trivia nugget for the Smash Fic fans.
Little trivia. Also, Miles Johnson was the name I went by when I was doing play-by-play and television hosting for the Campus Professional Wrestling League. So, you can find those on YouTube.
Shout out to your very old school fans.
Oh, I mean, you know what? Some of them are patrons, so
there
what are
you
gonna
go.
do? Representing the Gremlins are the Pain in the Ass, Kit Mulcairn.
Say you love Home Alone or The Nightmare Before Christmas and nobody cares. But say Die Hard and Gremlins are Christmas movies and everybody makes you feel like you're a leper.
And returning to the show, the hair in the 80s movie, Rafael Medina.
John McClane, because of the end of your life, the mogwai have seized the building. We hope you have enjoyed your movies, but more importantly, we hope you have enjoyed life.
And as a note, we will only be drawing in this match from 2 films, the original Die Hard and the original Gremlins, aka the Christmas movies. In order to determine who goes first this week, I challenged both teams to give me their best recipes for latkes and challah bread, and... damn it. Alright, I'm pretty sure Dan came up with the name Hans Grublin, so... Team McClane, you will be leading us into what I can only assume will be a horrifying quagmire from which there can be no escape without serious loss of honor and dignity, in which we will realize later we never should have entered in the first place.
Yep.
Just like fucking Saigon!
Die Hard is a film where a group of highly armed, well-trained thieves enter Nakatomi Plaza with an airtight plan worked out to the smallest detail. They take a group of Christmas partiers hostage, play both the police and the FBI like tiny plastic Guitar Hero instruments, and show themselves to be excellent at improvising around the unexpected. They are focused and have a clear goal with clear steps as to how to achieve that goal. And the one person who's able to defeat them, single-handedly, is John, Fly in the Ointment, McClane. It's going to take a lot more than a group of fragile, unfocused, easily manipulated Muppets to take this guy down. McClane starts off Die Hard with a pistol, but in his first fight against a machine gun-wielding opponent, he manages to win without firing his pistol once. Instead, he makes a series of masterful stealth checks and uses a circular saw to lead the mook exactly where he wants him, then manages to outfight the guy who has, conservatively, about 50 pounds of muscle over McClane, plus of course the aforementioned machine gun. Later on, this same mook's brother corners an unarmed McClane on the roof and presses the barrel of an assault rifle against McClane's cheek. I defy you to come up with a less advantageous position for McClane to start this fight in. Despite this, McClane still manages to take this guy down. He doesn't once resort to a gun through the whole fight. Against gremlins who, by and large, don't use firearms and are maybe 15 pounds soaking wet, McClane will destroy them, whether he has a gun or not. The Die Hard films have a reputation as being brainless, trigger-happy action films, and some characters in the film have this delusion as well, thinking of themselves as big damn action heroes. But the film is quick to always punish their hubris. When a group of highly armed police officers charge into the building to fight Hans and his men in a straight fight, McClane yells at them and calls them macho assholes because he knows that Hans will have some sort of trap for them. And, just like John predicts, those macho assholes meet an unfortunate end. John McClane isn't like those characters. He's astonishingly smart, practical, and precise. He uses every opportunity to spy on Gruber's men, keep track of their numbers, predict their movement several steps in advance, and isolate them so that he never has to deal with more than one or two at a time. McClane survives not because he has superior firepower or superior muscles, but because he has a superior mind. Think about the end of the film when he sees that he has an empty assault rifle and a pistol with 2 bullets in it, and the next room that he has to go into has the final 3 criminals in it. He tapes his pistol to his back and charges into the room, knocking the first criminal unconscious with the butt of his rifle. Then the other 2 pull guns on him and he drops his rifle, appearing to surrender. He smooth talks them for a while and plays to their egos, getting them to relax. Then when they least expect it, he pulls out the gun he had taped to his back and fires 2 perfect shots, taking out the last 2 remaining criminals. So, there's a fair chance that when John McClane has his final showdown with Hans Grublin, he's going to be doing it with an empty pistol in his hand and a secret flashlight taped to his back. But he's not just a good planner. He's also amazing when it comes to improvising and using tools in unexpected ways. He uses a gun strap to rappel down an elevator shaft and a fire hose to rappel down the side of a building. He's able to manipulate everything from an elevator to an exhaust fan in order to navigate the building and stay 2 steps ahead of his enemies. He also has very good instincts for detecting danger, seeing through Gruber's fake name and fake American accent, and intuiting where Hans had planted the rooftop explosives after seeing him lurking in a place he shouldn't have been. And finally, John McClane's greatest asset in this fight is just that he has such an endless ocean of determination. He falls downstairs, he walks on broken glass, and every person he tries to radio, with the exception of Al, are thick-headed jerkwads who repeatedly tell him to give up, not to get involved, to let the professionals handle it. And he doesn't listen. Not to these jerkwads, and not to his own body, crying out in pain and begging him to just give up. Even his freaking tank top, which goes from white to red to brown to black, by the end of the night is practically screaming at him, "Just stop! Do you see how gross I am?" If his own filthy-ass tank top doesn't scare him, then nothing the Gremlins can do is going to scare him. Nothing they do is going to deter him, and John won't stop until this time his tank top is dyed green with gremlin blood.
At first, the Gremlins might seem like they actually have the potential to be a group of really scary killer monsters. They've got those little claws and teeth, they can mess with technology, and they can multiply as much as they want. They could rig up some sort of elaborate trap and crush John McClane in an elevator or an automatic door. Or they could just spread out and find water sources and make like 5,000 gremlins. And then they could all swarm John McClane at once and tear him apart. And yeah, there's a lot of cool creative plans that Gremlins could do, but they don't ever do these things. Pretty much any person who thought about it for a minute could come up with all sorts of plans that the Gremlins could do, but all of these plans would be better than what the Gremlins actually do because you are thinking like a rational human being. You aren't thinking with the no attention span and pure juvenile id of a gremlin. One big example of just how non-tactically Gremlins think is in regards to how low on their list of priorities the long-term survival of their species seems to be. Their numbers are small, and so they begin in a very precarious position. You'd imagine that, for this first night at least, their ideal strategy would be to multiply like crazy, spread out, keep quiet, and find a diverse array of good hiding places to hunker down for when morning comes. But they do none of these things. You see, Gremlins try to kill someone, or take over a town, or ensure the survival of their own species in a very similar manner to how I prepare for an episode of Smash Fiction. I sit down and I'm like, okay, time to do it. I have to write my argument tonight. Cut to an hour later, and I'm scrolling through Kill La Kill fan art on Reddit, and then I'm like, wait, what was I supposed to be doing? Oh yeah, I'm writing my opening argument. Cut to an hour later, and I'm watching a streamer playing Magic the Gathering Arena on YouTube. The Gremlins are like, we're gonna take over this town. Cut to an hour later, and they're just hanging out in a bar playing darts, and then suddenly they're like, wait, what were we supposed to be doing? Oh yeah, let's take over this town. Cut to an hour later, and they're all gathered together in a movie theater watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I can eventually stop this cycle and get my argument done through sheer force of will, because I can be a goddamn grown-up when I need to be, but Gremlins do not possess this ability. At any plan they do come up with to kill someone or whatever, or only has 1 to 1.5 steps, and then they get bored before actually figuring out how to close the deal. Like, there's this really telling part where Stripe sets a trap for Billy in the YMCA, and it works. He trips him, Billy falls over, and Stripe leaps on top of him, claws out, and you think Stripe could totally kill him right now, but then he just scratches at his chest one time and then runs away. When Billy examines his chest, Stripe has apparently cut through his outer shirt, but not even his undershirt, let alone his skin. So either he didn't have a plan for how to finish him once he fell into the trap, or killing him with a fatal swipe to the chest was the plan all along, but he didn't prepare for the eventuality that Billy would be wearing 2 shirts. Lord knows his little gremlin claws could never pierce that kind of protection. Part of the reason why John McClane is on the back foot in the entire movie is that Gruber and his men are able to use technology intelligently. When McClane sets off a fire alarm, Gruber's men call the fire department and tell them it was a false alarm. They use walkie-talkies to coordinate their efforts across multiple floors. But when Gremlins play around with technology, it's a total roll of the dice. They're thinking, wouldn't it be funny if I did this? Or what would happen if I crossed these 2 wires? One time they got lucky and killed an old lady, but they're not going to engineer some perfect Rube Goldberg Final Destination style killing machine out of office appliances, and even if they did try to crush John McClane in an elevator or something, his aforementioned danger sense, quick reflexes, and problem solving are more than enough to pull his butt out of whatever sort of rudimentary death trap they can cook up for him. And seriously, if your one confirmed kill is an old lady who was so infirm that she couldn't even climb a staircase, maybe that's not actually a factoid you want to be bragging about. I know that it would seem like McClane would be somewhat handicapped by a lack of weaponry in this scenario, but how many times do we see the human characters in Gremlins needing weapons to off these little monsters by the dozen? Hell, Billy's middle-aged mother takes out 3 gremlins with no preparation using common kitchen utensils. These things have such a death wish that one of them even climbs into a blender for her. All she has to do is press a button. Not to mention that they're so physically weak that dozens of them pushing against a slightly ajar door can't overpower one Phoebe Cates holding it shut. And when it comes to manipulating a gremlin or tricking one, their motivations are surprisingly transparent and exploitable. Look how they treat Kate when she is trapped in the bar with them, or how they treat Gizmo when they get their hands on him. When they have the upper hand, they want to tease and humiliate their prey for as long as possible. And from what we see during his interactions with the terrorists, John knows how to flatter a foe in a superior position, how to appear weak until they let their guard down. And in terms of how McClane would finish the bastards off when the moment comes, geez, there are so many options. He could make his way down to the basement and cut off the building's water supply so that they couldn't reproduce, and then just kill them with a fucking golf club, or maybe one of those swords that Takagi has in his office. We all learned about McClane's skill with one of those that one time he got tied up in the basement of a pawn shop. That's the right movie I'm thinking about, right? Or who knows, maybe he'd do something even more insidious, like electrifying a fountain full of gremlins, or replacing the water with hydrochloric acid. And unlike the Gremlins, any good plan that I come up with is something that John McClane might actually do. Yippee-ki-yay, mogwai fuckers.
I got the Pulp Fiction joke like a good 15 seconds after you had said it and moved on, just so you know. I would have laughed at that.
I appreciate that.
Really impressed with your American accents, Team McClane.
Oh, thank you.
You ought to be on fucking TV for those accents. But this is radio, not television, so Team Gremlins, time for your opening arguments to emerge from their pupil stages.
Allow me to take you back, all the way back, to the long-forgotten decade, the 1980s, of which little to no record remains except the hand-chiseled kindergarten art our respective parents hung on the kitchen boulder behind which we hid our various meats and berries. In all of action moviedom, there is no luckier son of a bitch captured on celluloid than John Fauntleroy McClane. His particular individual ineptitude, endemic to his character, should leave him holier than an uninvited missionary on North Sentinel Island. The only reason he survives the scenario in Die Hard is because Hans prepared the exact dudes he needed to fail by not hiring anyone packing any actual combat experience, instead employing well-coiffed proto-Fabio shitgibbons whose only qualifications were strong dialects, no split ends, and using aiming as a dump stat. This is not a man who thinks or operates well under pressure, as evidenced by the decisions and actions he exercises through the film. Let's start with basics. Yes, every officer has, as part of their loadout, a sidearm, which is standard duty gear. But you know what you're never going to see patrolling the streets? A cop without his fucking shoes. These are also critical, mandatory gear, and his oversight in procuring this other critical equipment when it was in the same fucking room as he was only goes to show how stress breaks this man. In his panic, he disregards basic, obvious things, which he demonstrates throughout the entire film. As the tenet goes, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. McClane's so-called stealth would make Solid Snake want to beat his head against his cardboard box, thus betraying his position. His tactical positioning in the model room is horrendous, with terrible cover, worse concealment, and no shooting platform. When he accidentally succeeds in killing Tony by taking him along for his fall down the stairs, does he do the smart thing and hide the body, leaving the enemy ignorant to his presence, creating an opportunity to stealthily eliminate more terrorists before they catch on much too late? No! He engages in a dick-waving contest and blows any advantage by broadcasting his presence with his shitty Etsy reject sweater. When calling for help from the roof, is it from a strategic vantage/cover point, maintaining sight and weapon coverage over the only access door? Also no! He's busy losing his shit at dispatch right in the open, allowing the Garnier Fructis Brigade to get the jump on his ass while simultaneously getting us to wholly sympathize with Holly's desire for trial separation. The only reason he lacks the combined lead content of Bonnie and Clyde is that the Grubernauts are Europeans. Even when running from the terrorists shooting for the first time in their lives, he abandons all sense of self-preservation as he fires from open spaces with no sense to fire from cover or not to turn his back on his assailants and keep them in his goddamn sight. Jesus Christ, John! Is this your first day on patrol? Oy vey, John, you need to die smarter, not harder. Speaking of smart, John just plain ain't the brightest knife in the pot. Knowing that the terrorists are guys in uncommonly fancy suits, he still lets Hans dupe his ass, and when presented as a hostile and giving him a chance to take out the head of this terrorist organization with the unloaded gun, he still has to take out the measuring tape and whip out his dick. Let's not forget that he still leaves a terrorist alive at the end of the movie. John never finds a problem he doesn't try to shoot, blow up, or 80s action movie out of. And so, with the building crawling with the mogwai, he absolutely will not stop having the mental seizure to think for solutions outside of the box. He may think on his feet, but not well. Needless to say, there will still be more gremlins when he thinks he's done. The Gremlins, however, will not be susceptible to this schizophrenic pastiche of random superglued craft store supplies McClane calls a strategy. They would feel no need to engage with his demonstrations of toxic masculinity, as they would have nothing to prove to this one guy whose strategy seems to result in the fire extinguishing system going off and giving them even more troops. The reason Fauntleroy succeeds is not because he's better, but because he successfully goads the Maybelline mob into meeting him on his dick-measuring, distance-pissing terms. But the Gremlins wouldn't be compelled to out-piss him out of pride and wouldn't bear the existential panic of the L'Oreal Legion. Not only would the Gremlins win, but narratively should win. One would think this showdown comes to an action trope stereotype against an infestation of comedy horror gnomes. What I propose to you is that not only is this incorrect, but that this is a moralistic battle for the future, pitting the unconventional, ironic arbiters of social and economic parity against the Reaganomic capitalist hellscape in which we find ourselves living. The Gremlins must start here.
Pandering!
No, go on.
The Gremlins must start here in hypothetical smash-up 1988, defeating the toxic masculinity and piss-poor tactics of John McClane in order to secure a better smash fiction future reality than the actual smash present we are living in.
Oh, to the barricades!
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through Nakatomi Tower, a dozen gremlins crept through, fucking up all the power. I really wanted to do the whole fucking opener in a rhyme, but I was like, I don't got time for that. Anyway. The gremlins function in many ways like animals, but show many times throughout their film to be both physically and mentally supernatural, particularly with electronics. They display an instinctual understanding of how electronics and machinery work. At first, I was like, okay, so they wanted Billy to feed them after midnight, and observed that he checks his clock before feeding them, so they just figured they had to get it to stop changing, and somehow knew that destroying the cord would disable the clock. Okay, sure. Dan witnessed my confusion. He can attest. That first show of intelligence was already blowing my mind when I was trying to see them as smart animals. And then when Billy's mom tries to call for help, you see a gremlin purposefully disconnect the phone box. Okay. Maybe that was just chaotic luck. And then 3 of them started driving a snowplow, and to hell with everything, I thought. Just by fucking with electric cables, they rewire traffic lights, bypassing the failsafe, making the lights green in all directions, and causing accidents. Yo, they can read! And they can use guns. Ho, ho, ho. What I'm trying to say is that every bit of tech in this building is a death trap waiting for McClane's bare foot to step into. When watching these films, I found that Die Hard and Gremlins actually overlap in a really odd and satisfying way, but where things start to diverge is the Gremlins and McClane's methods of dealing with the opposition, being sneaky ambushers. The terrorists of Die Hard walk through the building, afraid of the rogue cop who could jump out at them any moment. But the Gremlins instinctually sneak around when a human victim or some fun tech is in sight. So many times in Gremlins, when the little shits are sneaking around, they're not even in frame or acknowledged. Like when those 2 police officers pull up to Santa getting ripped apart by several Gremlins, and, well, first of all, the cops just stare in disbelief and horror. And then they quickly shirk their duty as protectors of the people and drive off. But the damage has been done as we see that the cop driving can't brake at the crazy intersection. The Gremlins cut the brakes off screen, combining their small size with their insidious nature in a competition of sneaky murder. The Gremlins are gonna deck John's balls. Gremlins exist to wreak havoc at every opportunity. They're actually kind of like Stitch, but less strong, a little more specialized, and able to duplicate themselves. When a small glass of water spills onto Gizmo, 5 duplicate mogwai emerge from its back, fully forming in about a minute. The Gremlins just need to terrorize the guy who has a tendency to cognitively shut down when he panics, and does so when it's 12 to 1 odds. Imagine then the bowel-voiding lockup his brain will experience when the numbers are hundreds to 1, who successfully terrorized an entire town with their mischievousness and hacking abilities. It's just one building, and he's one piss-poor decision away, riding atop an elevator, say, from the Gremlins hacking that shit and sending him through the Nakatomi roof. And like, Claire, it's not chaotic luck. I mean, you know what? Even if it is, they just fuck with everything so goddamn bad. He gonna be in the wrong place at the wrong time. McClane was falling apart, a bloody fucking mess by the time he was down to just a few terrorists left. Imagine if more terrorists had shown up. Hans Grublin or any of the other Gremlins in this match can hit that wet reset button. It was kind of nasty sounding, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And restore their army with a sink, a water fountain, a sprinkler system. And you think the weather outside is frightful.
Team Gremlins, that was almost as good as late-night Snow White screenings. Team McClane, you want to know the secret to surviving Smash Fiction? When you get past the opening arguments, take the gloves off, walk around, and make fists with your rebuttals.
You talked about the time when John McClane sent them the little present of the dead terrorist with like the message on the sweater as like, oh, that was him doing a dick measuring contest. It actually wasn't. You see that when he drops that off to them, he's in like the ceiling above them, like looking down at them and listening to their conversation because he wants to hear, because they all get on the radios and talk to each other. And he is then able to like write on his arm the list of all of the terrorists to figure them out. And they talk about how their plans are changing because he didn't know what their plans were before. He didn't know what their patrols were. But because this new guy showed up, they change all of their patrols. They change all of their plans and they make a plan for what they're going to do. And he listens to that. And that lets him get the drop on them in the future. It actually was him just getting information out of them.
The thing is, if he knows what floor they're on because he manages to send it to the correct floor, if he also knows how to infiltrate via the air conditioning system, that is a better way to go about doing that and let them go about just discussing their plans with them none the wiser. Now they're going to be on the lookout for him.
You guys made the very baffling point that John McClane panics and can't think of plans outside the box. Like, are you talking about when he was up on the roof and the roof was about to explode and there was a helicopter with a sniper rifle coming at him and he used a fire hose to rappel down the side of a building? Or like when he strapped C4 to a chair and then kicked it down an elevator shaft in order to blow up some terrorists that were like several floors below him? Like, you don't need to keep a cool head about yourself to kill Gremlins, because none of the characters in Gremlins do.
Yeah,
John McClane is way more together than they are, and you don't need to be that together to kill them.
Was Billy's mom together when she killed like 6 gremlins in like 2 minutes?
Let me just state for the record as the judge, That woman was stone cold. She was a fucking ninja. I wouldn't bring that into your argument if I were you, Team McClane, because she had a look in her eye. She was a fucking killer.
I will tell you, as a parent, I will see Marissa go that hardcore at the drop of anything if something might possibly be in the house. I am going to be more afraid of her and her willingness to do what needs to be done directly than I am of someone like John McClane, who's a little more in my wheelhouse.
Raphael's admitting Gremlins would kill him.
No.
Look, I ain't gonna lie. I could probably kill a gremlin. But their strength is in numbers and chaos. I think if John McClane sees a few out in the open, he probably gonna kill him. Sorry, but that's what water's for. And I see him more falling into a lot of the electrical shit. He's gonna be trying to sneak around, and he's gonna be getting injured by a lot of stuff gone wrong.
I just want to point out, so Stripe, who's easily the most dangerous of the first batch, manages to get a hold of a gun, and the only thing that he ever manages to end up hitting is another gremlin. He misses Billy several times at point-blank range, despite having surprise, and I feel like this means that gremlins are either terrible shots, very easy to shoot, or both. And I feel like it's probably both.
I mean, you see the little shitty, Muppet arms? Yeah, they're not going to be great at it, but it doesn't help that these chaotic things have guns and can injure you.
And let's not forget that Stripe pretty easily nails Billy with that crossbow in the end. Their aim can improve. They're at least on par with the Europeans who never have any access to guns at this point. This is America, goddammit.
John McClane could take a crossbow bolt like a champ, and you know it. You were talking a lot of bad stuff about the time when he seemed to be tricked by Hans and stuff like that. Well, first of all, the idea that a person wearing a nice suit is automatically a terrorist is not true, because everyone in that place wears nice suits because they're a bunch of rich, yuppie assholes. And yet, despite that, he still was able to tell that Hans was a terrorist, or at least suspect it enough that he didn't give him a gun with actual bullets in it. That was a test, and when he tried to fire the gun, he was planning on shooting him, and the only reason it didn't is because then another terrorist showed up right then and there.
He was talking to him for a while.
He took out his dick and decided to measure it. It's like, you know what? No, Hans,
those little sharp
drop
teeth,
your pants.
you don't do that.
Hans, drop your pants right now. We're going to measure these things. That's
now who's getting into a dick measuring contest.
Okay. Good effort to neutralize your competition, Team McClane, but I don't want neutral, I want dead. Team Gremlins, do with their arguments what your society has done with all nature's gifts.
These gremlins are not fragile. They are strong and they die harder than John McClane. They cannot be killed by conventional weaponry. We see that when Hardcore Mom decides to stab the mogwai through the chest onto the cutting board, he's trying to pull that out the entire rest of the scene. They don't die easily. Yes, she blends one to death and microwaves one to death, but the other ones have to be killed in non-conventional manner. Traditional weapons, the kind that John McClane would easily resort to, aren't going to kill them.
Kate takes out about a dozen of these guys using a Polaroid camera.
She doesn't take them out; they're just stunned.
Yeah,
light doesn't kill them.
And once they're stunned, you can just step on their little faces.
Yeah, you can easily then take them out with conventional weaponry, like throwing them off the building.
You were making fun of the little Muppet arms? You know what? Cat Juno, sit your ass down, because there is one irresistible force in the universe, and that is Muppet Kung Fu. And if John McClane catches one of these, he will not be lucky enough to catch two. Just look at the bountiful examples of Miss Piggy karate chopping someone into oblivion. That is what each and every one of these guys are packing.
I will point out, when Stripe loses control of the chainsaw he gets at the end, and it hits the ground, it starts dragging him along the ground. He just gets dragged halfway across that store and can't pull himself back up. So that's the amount of upper body strength that he has.
It's just a matter of weight differential.
I know Miss Piggy. I am good friends with Miss Piggy. And Stripe, sir, is no Miss Piggy.
You mentioned McClane keeping track of Hans's men, right? That's not going to be a thing that McClane can do with the Gremlins. You'll never know exactly how many there are, what they're up to, how many fucking things they've, fucked with.
Yeah. He's not going to use the same tactics because he's going to realize that gremlins don't work the same way that terrorists do. He knows about like the whole multiplying with water thing. He knows about all that stuff. So instead, he's probably, rather than try to like track them all down, do something to just draw them all together.
That's
There
just
are
conjecture.
so many of them that they are never, ever all together. And that's
Unless there's a screening of Snow White and the Seven
no,
Dwarfs.
because then Stripe wandered away. That's the beauty of like large numbers. It's so hard to get all of them in one go, and then drip drop, you got fucking a new problem.
I think if John McClane gets on the PA system and starts singing New York, New York into it.
Hey, we can only
First
do
two
the
movies,
first movie,
first
Dan.
movies.
He can't sing New York, New York.
You're right, damn it.
Our plan is ruined.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because as much as you like to say that the gremlins are unfocused, one thing that we see demonstrated is that the gremlins actually have hive mind telepathic communication, and that is
it's
demonstrated in that scene, because all of the gremlins inside are singing hi-ho, it's off to work we go, and yet even Gizmo, who is outside, cannot hear what's going on from outside the theater. Even he is able to keep tune, rhythm, and lyrics with what's going on inside. And the reason is, much as is demonstrated whenever they team up wordlessly to take control of like Futterman's plow, we see that they have a wordless communication. If even Gizmo is attuned to it, that suggests a hive mind telepathic communication.
That
Call
is
them
a
unfocused.
ridiculous. That
No,
is a ridiculous
honestly,
logical leap. There are
Okay,
other
it's
there are
not
other
really.
explanations.
Here's the thing. Even if that were true, it's exactly like their ability to multiply in water. It's a great resource if they were to use it strategically. The gremlins do not use any of their abilities strategically. It would not come in handy against John McClane. If anything, if he was to catch on to the fact that they all share some sort of perspective, he's exactly the sort of person who would use it against them.
Well, it looks like my secret hope that this match would end with the two sides bonding over their mutual love of tobacco and lung cancer won't be coming true.
Why do you think we left Megan Bob out of this fight?
It's the 80s. Cocaine.
McClane and the Gremlins have made their way to the roof of the building and are duking it out for all they're worth in an epic confrontation. Maybe a little too epic, though. I don't like the looks of that sky. If you guys don't finish up soon, you'll be fighting in the middle of the lightning round!
What?
I know, it's crazy.
But don't they know it's Christmas?
Ah, yes, that sound you just heard was the sound of a bolt of lightning hitting the roof and knocking both McClane and the Gremlins off the building. 13 hands, 1 human, 12 less so, simultaneously grab hold of the edge of the rooftop and cut! And print. That's a wrap, guys. We're done here. Why are you guys still here? Look, I don't know what you all expected. It's not the 80s anymore. If we're doing a Die Hard Gremlins crossover, you're damn right we're stretching that shit into at least 2 films, probably 3, with a post-credit sequence that teases the inclusion of Eddie Murphy's character from Trading Places. Cliffhanger endings are all the rage these days, guys. If you don't like it, you can do what anyone can do. Write the sequel your own damn self and pitch it to the studio. Until then, we'll be sending you the current working version of the script. Remember, you're on contract. The script is tentatively titled It's Hard to Die If You're a Mogwai. Good day.
Ah, beautiful.
You guys aren't really going to let a movie with that kind of title get out of pre-production, are you? If you want to have any say over how the story ends, in other words, how the decision is made, you're going to have to pitch me your own version of Die Hard vs. Gremlins 2. You ready? You know what? Screw it, you're hired. But before you get excited, don't forget, this is a big studio film, okay? There's money riding on this. And if you thought the studio execs weren't going to butt their heads into the creative process, you are sadly mistaken. And it is at this point that I must ask you to please lay your hands on some D6s.
Oh. You know, rather than doing it however we're planning on it, we could just, like, have an entire hour-long episode of Collaboratory right now, where we, like, figure out a Die Hard versus Gremlins movie, and then, like, after that hour, like, finish off with the rest of the... How do you guys feel about that?
You have no idea how badly I now need to do this.
This is going to be kind of a bastard Collaboratory, Claire. So,
Okay, we'll see. All right, let's do it.
So the first thing that comes in from on high is your studio-mandated rating. Please roll those D6s.
Okay. I got a 6.
2? Okay. Raphael
I think I know what this might be.
Yeah, Raphael and Kit, your movie's rated G.
Okay.
Claire and Dan, your movie will be rated NC-17.
All right.
Great.
Off to a great start.
I love this already.
Next, they tell you they've got a new character in mind, and they need a really big role because they're being played by...
5.
4.
Claire and Dan, they're being played by The Rock.
Yes!
And for Kit and Raphael, they're being played by Salma Hayek.
Oh, yes.
Then, in the middle of production, big news! The studio unexpectedly lands another IP that's also in the Maybe It's a Christmas Movie category. Time for a cinematic universe, baby!
Woo!
It doesn't need a whole lot of time, but somehow you need to work in a connection to...
4.
2.
So, Dan and Claire, you have to work in a connection to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Kit and Raphael, your film will contain some sort of tie-in to Batman Returns.
Which characters are in that one?
Catwoman and Penguin.
Oh, fuck yeah! It's the best Catwoman outfit.
And finally, at the last minute, somebody upstairs, somebody really big, heard about your project, heard about your Maybe It's a Christmas Movie cinematic universe, loves it, but doesn't get the whole Christmas movie thing and wanted a different release date anyway, so you're gonna have to figure out how to theme your final film around...
2.
4.
Dan and Claire, you will be theming your film around Easter. Kit and Raphael, you will be theming yours around Valentine's Day. So, Dan and Claire, you are making an NC-17 movie starring The Rock that includes a Kiss Kiss Bang Bang crossover and is themed around Easter.
Sure.
Also Gremlins and Die Hard.
Also Gremlins Die Hard. Raphael and Kit, you will be giving me a G-rated movie starring Salma Hayek that ties into Batman Returns and is themed around Valentine's Day. Team McClane went first in the main round, which means Team Gremlins will be going first in the lightning round. Don't hate me, guys.
Okay. We have been given the challenge of finding a rated G movie with the Gremlins and John McClane of Die Hard. This is clearly an animated movie.
Yeah, it's rated G.
Opportunities for songs, toys, tie-ins. The kids will go crazy. We'll have a deal with McDonald's.
The trouble starts when this corrupt businessman, the Penguin, purchases from China and brings over a bunch of mogwai to Gotham.
From that point, we cut to John McClane getting off the plane, shoes on this time, and having inherited a fortune, getting with Holly and the kids, moving to Gotham to start a new life in an attempt to rebuild his relationship, not only with his family, with his wife, with his children, but with himself.
Yeah, Holly had a real hard time convincing John that Los Angeles was worth it after that whole mess. So yeah, Gotham better than LA?
Suddenly, out of nowhere, the mogwai manage to pick the locks of their cage, somehow find their way to the Penguin's little underground pool, and they start multiplying. And then they find his little fish hatchery, and they start eating. It happens to be after midnight. You have a magical girl transformation into the Gremlins, because of course you gotta keep this PG, so it's a poof of magic, and there's rainbows and sparkles.
These cute little bastards begin terrorizing the city, like they do.
They start crawling all over the city, but cutely. Can't be pissing off those sensors. And as they do, they tend to start interfering with John McClane and Holly, and they just, every time he tries to do some sort of redemptive act for her, they just keep screwing it up. And so he's starting to get really pissed off. But it turns out that he inherited that fortune. And so suddenly he is going to turn around and invest that fortune, and he is going to become the Batman. But as is necessary with 80s Batman, even animated, he cannot move his neck.
Okay, while he's fighting gremlins, there's a little interesting B-plot. Holly, now played by Salma Hayek, by the way. So we had to fit her into this somehow.
That's quite a recap.
Yeah, it is.
McClane's gone a lot. She's getting a little bitter. She's buying a lot of cats. Like, just really getting weirdly close to these cats. The audience can tell that they're actually gremlins in disguise. She becomes Mogwoman. She becomes Mogwoman. She's gone mad with her little cat gremlins.
They were going to tear apart Holly and John McClane because, as it turns out, John McClane and Selena Kyle are the ones destined to be together. So they engage in some rated G hijinks in order to split up Holly and McClane, as is his ultimate fate. But then it turns out as he's trying to rid himself of the mogwai problem, it just seems that they keep bringing together Mogwoman and Bat McClane, and it turns out that they tend to have a lot in common. And by the end of it, it turns out that they were sabotaging Holly and John because John and Selena Kyle were meant to be together, and they shipped themselves back to China after that.
I love it.
Oh yeah, the name of the movie? My Scaly Valentine. You know, because it isn't apparent until the very end that it's a fucking Valentine's Day movie, because we kind of just worked that one in.
Yeah, you gotta get the SEO on that one. All right, Danny Claire, top it.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah. So you know what the first Die Hard movie is missing, because you know how John McClane's doing all these action scenes and he's always like talking to himself in the middle of nowhere, like just sort of expositing out loud his inner monologue. You know what you need in action movie? You need a buddy. You need a buddy cop movie.
I mean, that's certainly what Die Hard's 3 and Up decided to do. We're just doing it slightly earlier in the sequel train.
Not familiar with these films you're talking about, except for 3.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard-boiled detective story. A hard-boiled because it's on Easter. Get it? Die hard-boiled? Is there something there? Anyway, Die Hard-boiled detective story.
The action begins when John McClane's kids are looking to set up like a big Easter egg hunt, and so they go looking for Easter eggs, and they end up finding gremlin eggs. Heretofore unmentioned in the mythology, but clearly established here. So they dye them into Easter eggs, they scatter them all around, and then they hatch into pastel-colored gremlins.
Oh, no.
Which, due to a side effect of the dye, are able to, I guess, move around in the daytime or something. Or maybe this just all takes place at night. Anyway, we're moving on. So they all go, they start kidnapping John McClane's family and hiding them in giant Easter eggs all around town. And they kidnap a bunch of other people as well. And so John McClane has to go on the ultimate Easter egg hunt in order to get his family back.
He meets up with The Rock, whose family was apparently also kidnapped by the Gremlins. They also stole The Rock's clothes throughout because we need the NC-17 rating.
Right.
Throughout the entire movie, as they're fighting right, The Rock is completely butt naked.
It's naked Dwayne Johnson.
And yeah, because, you know, sometimes just a flaccid penis isn't enough to get you, you know, that NC-17 rating. He has a rage boner the entire time that he wants to kill these gremlins so bad.
Oh, no.
So we're taking a few elements from Die Hard 3 in which this seemingly omnipotent puppet master is leading around McClane and his sidekick throughout these different kind of puzzles and death traps. And it turns out that the puppet master is Simon Grublin, the brother of Hans Grublin, who in this movie is played by Jeremy Irons as well.
Yeah. His character that he's playing, The Rock, his name is, he's Big Gay The Rock. And they originally were going to try to get like Val Kilmer to reprise his role as Big Gay Perry, because it's supposed to be a crossover.
Yeah.
But, you know, they couldn't get him for the money, and so they ended up casting The Rock.
Val Kilmer wanted too much money.
Val Kilmer wanted so much money, so they got The Rock instead.
That's right.
Yeah, indeed. You know The Rock. The Rock works for scale.
Yeah.
And they ended up shooting like, you know, 90% of the movie before Kilmer came back on, and then they kind of didn't need him anymore, but they were still happy to have him, so they fit him into a subplot where at one point The Rock, even though, you know, he has none of his clothing, he still has his wallet. Don't ask where he's keeping it. And he pulls it out and flashes a picture of his family he was missing, which includes his husband, Big Gay Perry, and all their kids. And of course, even though he was supposed to be Big Gay Perry originally, though, The Rock does still have a terrible, terrible blonde wig throughout all of the movie.
I think it's just Gay Perry. Isn't it just Gay Perry in that movie?
It's Gay Perry, but it's clearly Big Gay.
Sure,
Big Gay
okay.
The Rock,
Yeah.
sure.
We're still batting around a few ideas for the title. Obviously, the studio is going to have final say. The best one I could come up with, which really tells you some of the ideas I came up with, was Kiss Hard with a Gremlin.
Oh, no.
I think we're gonna go with Keister Sunday though,
Oh, Easter Sunday. I like that one.
because you got all that nice rock booty. It has the subtitle, you know, it's Keister Sunday: The New Hatch, or alternatively, Keister Sunday: Die Harder. Get it? Die.
D-Y-E. So there you go. Rock boners.
I mean, you'd get Pretty big audience.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
You tell me if that movie came out, people would not go see it.
People would.
All right. Well, that was glorious. I still don't know how I'm going to judge a fucking Christmas match, so I think I'm going to have to go take some time and figure this out. Stupid Christmas. Like, I needed another reason to hate it besides my dad dying in a chimney while wearing a Santa suit.
Which is really baffling because you're Jewish. So. Well, this is fun.
I feel like I had some topics I wanted to bring up during this segment, but that last lightning round just fried my brain so hard.
I'll start. Do you want to hear my favorite dumb theory I came up with while watching Gremlins?
Yeah, let's hear.
There's the part where Phoebe Cates is holding the door shut, and I was thinking, like, those Gremlins must be really weak. I was like, or maybe Phoebe Cates is just really strong. And then later on in the movie, she breaks a padlock with her bare hands when they're trying to, like, get into an electrical panel. And then I was like, wait. And then I watched Gremlins 2. We didn't end up using it, but she also then survives an elevator crash.
From 50
onto
floors up.
Yes, onto like a few Gremlins, but still, she doesn't seem to be injured at all. I was like, is Phoebe Cates an unbreakable? Does she like have? Does she have superhuman strength and invulnerability and just not know it?
That is in my notes. All of the Gremlins' enemies are superhuman and immortal. Because you look at the head guy, and you tell me that that is not exactly James Franco trying to hide himself in a different decade. So I put that everybody here is a vampire time lord, that's vampire time lord James Franco. Kate is literally invincible. By the second movie, you have literal fucking Dracula, and the scientist twins suggest that this is a universe in which the T-1000 exists. Because those are the T-1000 guys.
That's the only way there could be two of them,
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And not only that, the fucking H.G. Wells literal time machine exists and works in Gremlins. And not only that, but Kingston Falls is Hill Valley. It went into this terrible rabbit K-hole of parallel universe theory.
You had a time machine flying over Hill Valley in 1955, get struck by lightning. You think there's not going to be any sort of temporal repercussions echoing throughout history as a result of that? Please, we're not children.
The theater that blows up is also the same theater that gets driven into in Back to the Future. Clearly a multiverse.
Open your eyes, sheeple.
So,
can we talk for a second about Gremlins 2, though?
I love Gremlins 2 so much.
I did not like it anywhere near as much as the first one.
I loved that one. I mean, I like it like a good movie. I don't like it.
It's not good.
No.
Yeah, there you go.
But like the Gremlins with part 2 not only can morph and adapt, but they can literally change fucking reality when it's not going the way they want. And the only thing, brother, that can change how the Gremlins are going to act is Hulkamania!
Listen, man, if Mojo Jojo did not get to mind control Kit the Judge in the ape match, the Gremlins do not get to tear apart the film that is Die Hard versus Gremlins. I'm sorry. That is a precedent that has been established.
That's only if you have Hulk on your side, and we do!
The second Gremlins movie felt a lot more like a parody of the first one than a sequel to the first one.
One of the funniest scenes I've seen in a movie in a very long time was the callback speech that Kate gives about Lincoln's President's Day or whatever. That was like the funniest thing ever, because the most ridiculous, out of place, this scene should be deleted from this movie. This is out of tone and terrible and horrifically sad if you think about it in the first one where she talks about her dad dying, and then they do like just the perfect, stupid subversion of it with her talking about, was it like why she hates Lincoln's birthday and like this like weird traumatized thing about a man in a Lincoln costume.
I love how it's broke.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
There is a scene, the Christmas tree scene. I guess that's Stripe. You see him in the tree and then it gets pushed over, but you clearly see that he has assistance from a man in a red shirt and glasses. And there are several times in that first movie where you can see that they have the assistance of people that they can summon from another dimension. They just can't phase in and out of reality like that unless there is some supernatural element to them. I believe they can summon drones, like Dracula, to help them with their bidding.
Maybe it's that, like, Gremlins are these sort of extraplanar entities. The Gremlins that we see are, like, the entity like extending its hand into our dimension.
Ooh, creepy.
But then like when we see the puppeteers, it's like a little bit more of them is coming in.
It's like a nerdy
Do you
guy
think
with
it's
a red
Yog
sweater
Sothoth?
and
Yes.
Yes!
It could very well be. Could very well be.
First of all, I want to say kudos to both sides for your arguments, because I was really going back and forth. It was closer than I thought, and it was closer in a different way than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to say right up front that in the end, I have to give the win in this match to John McClane.
Oh!
Oh boy.
And both these teams, both these entities are in, like, kind of unfamiliar situations in different ways, because McClane spends his entire movie taunting and mind-fucking the terrorists, right? That's his whole game, besides just surviving shit, is, like, talking to them, sneakily getting information. And as was brought up in this match, that's just not going to work here. He's going to have to resort to different tactics. The Gremlins certainly have the capacity to really fuck up some shit. I loved the telepathy point. I think that's true. It's something that Sharon and I started talking about for like an hour after the movie was over. When we rewatched it. So it was like, yeah, they're totally a hive mind. How the fuck do they know the words to Snow White? This makes no sense. They are really good at causing chaos. And I think the question became for me, who's going to do the best in a chaotic environment? And I was about to come back on the show and tell you guys that the Gremlins had won the match. And then I saw that at the very bottom of my McClane notes, there was one word written down, and it was determination. And it got me thinking about Team McClane's points, about how he doesn't give up, about how it doesn't fucking matter how beat up he gets, how many people are telling him to stop, and combined with the fact that there is evidence, as you brought up, of him improvising plans and kind of playing things on the fly when shit starts to go wrong, by the tiniest hair, I'm giving it to McClane. I think he pulls it out at the very last second.
You guys did amazingly, and I am surprised and very pleased that we managed to win against the arguments that you two put up, so very good game.
You guys really killed it.
GG, it was a fun one.
Need more anti-capitalism arguments in there, just for next time.
Tom? Bo, the capitalist thanks? No, not here. I mean, unless you got some money, I'll fucking...
Subscribe on Patreon.
So yeah, speaking of Patreon, this year we're going to do the postcards thing again. If you haven't listened to last year's episodes about that, we make postcards and sign them and send them out to all of our patrons who want one. So if you guys would like a little custom signed card with some Smash Fiction art on it from us, just be a patron by Christmas, and we will start mailing out those cards sometime in January. We will send a message through Patreon asking for your current mailing address.
They're Yuletide cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Festivus cards.
Not to call them Christmas. Holiday cards. You know what I'm
Candle
saying?
nights.
They're
Cage
really
mess.
they're not even holiday themed. They're just thank you cards. It's just that we only ever really see each other all around the holidays. So
Yeah,
there you go.
so that's like usually when we're in the same place and can sign a thing.
We have a little signing party. It's great.
Yeah, it's
anyway,
fun.
over to Twitter. Thank you to Krista CS, Neil Butler, Decade Fan, Andrew Young, Icon Jade, Florian, Merman Emoji. That's Fat Blunt.
Nice.
Earth Mofo,
Hey!
Vladimir Duran. Oh shit, yeah. Hey, Earth Mofo.
Hey, what's up, Earth Mofo?
Vladimir Duran, Jake the Fake Jake's gnashing esophagus. I hope you're okay, buddy.
That sounds very
That doesn't
pleasant.
sound like something esophaguses should do.
I am Jake's gnashing esophagus.
Oh, fuck yeah. Cosplay Disney Bound, Ho-Ho's Bizarre Adventure, Brad to be Rad, the Unpacking the Power of Power Pack podcast. Wow, I liked all the plosives in that one. Ian the Great, Vander Turner, Shit My Cam Says, Sean Boyd, Fortavari, Tyler, Mike Carbuccia, Sandwich Surplus, and his podcast Pop Culture Failure. Over to Tumbles. Thank you to Ink the Cryptid, Fat Blonde 69,
Fat Blunt 69.
Tris Liz Forever, Secretly a Skeleton Madman Cody G, Changing Shades, and Sid Rabbit Blog. Over to Facebook, thank you to Sharon Schneiderman, Hayden Reynolds, Jeffrey Ketchum, Robert Ramsey, Daniel Kidder, Jeff Polier, Adam Mayo, and Neil Butler. And thank you to Jennifer Jordan, who made us shipwrecked fan art of Dracula in Heelys and Axe wearing a skirt.
Oh, yeah,
It
that
was
was
tremendous.
great.
I really loved that.
That was
It
great.
was adorbs.
Also, thank you to Simi, who wrote us another very long, very sweet email. Bless
Yeah.
you, Simi.
We love the correspondence we get from you guys, regardless of where it comes in. It's just, You guys are so nice.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your life to, like, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
And you're always so nice about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good people, mainly. You know who you
Mainly.
are.
You know from Miles, that's, like, the highest compliment.
Yeah. And thank you also to Matthias, who is our featured patron on this particular episode, and was turned via the magic of Patreon and Miles' storytelling into a hacking-centric gremlin,
He's a really smart
I guess.
gremlin.
Also, not
I
that
imagine-
Matthias, different Matthias, if you're thinking of the
Yes,
other Matthias.
also not the Matthias that we thanked in a previous episode and has been on the show. This is a second Matthias because apparently we attract Matthiases as fans quite prolifically.
Is it okay to feed Matthias's after midnight?
I mean, I guess we'll find out because my best knowledge says that he actually escaped the slaughter of the rest of the gremlins and escaped into the Los Angeles sewer system and roams the City of Angels to this very day, where he continues to give to us on Patreon, and you can also become a gremlin or something similar by doing the same. Raphael, thank you so much for joining us once again on this stupid show with its stupid premise and its very stupid hosts. We are fortunate and
I'm glad to be
thankful have
counted
you on.
among you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you have anything that you would like to talk about? Anything you'd like to plug, you'd like our listeners to know about?
Yes, I do some acting, and I previously mentioned that I was on a collection called Lady Belladonna's Nightshades, which was available on Amazon Prime. The sequel for that has just finished filming, Lady Belladonna's Tales from the Inferno, in which I play a damned Ed Wood, and it has had its local as well as its Phoenix premieres, and I believe they're just trying to find a format for which to release it, and I just want to get the word out that it's coming and ready to go. But additionally, another movie that I was in a long time ago actually just got its Amazon release. It is the Grindhouse double feature, Night Squad with Nunja, and I'm in Nunja. And that is the second part of it. It's a short 20-minute video, but it's free with Amazon Prime. If you want to go check it out, the graphics on it will make you think that they are about to get a lawsuit from the Weinstein Company or Miramax, whatever they were when Grindhouse was released. But just wanted to put that out there, and hope you guys check it out and enjoy it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, the latest episode of Collaboratory.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going, and we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight. McClane, now tragically shoeless, grips his pistol and watches from the doorway as the gremlins arrive to the party in the same condition that many of their well-dressed human victims are about to find themselves in. Fashionably late.
You stole that joke from my episode that I did of
Did I?
the Neil Patrick Harris villain off, but that's fine.
Oh, are you serious? I haven't even listened to it yet.
No, I made a fashionably late equals dead pun as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
it's
didn't
fine.
mean to. I haven't listened to it yet.
I guess that's our thing now.
That's what you get for not listening.
That's true.
You
Grubelin
lost that episode. It was a good one. What are you doing? I was very funny. I sung a lot of songs. Everyone was very good, but especially me.
The entirety of Die Hard is a love letter to the Reagan era and Randian mentalities, with John McClane serving as the protector of malignant capitalism and all its carcinogenic fallout. I'd like to take a moment to explore the construct of fiction itself in this case.
Oh my god, I love this so much.
We are zooming way out.
As though this matchup wasn't already in a neck brace from genre whiplash. We see Die Hard embodying all of the 80s era dictum and rhetoric of Reaganists and their apologists. Their unabashed worship of capitalism and its ends by any means malignancy. The distrust of career public service persons in favor of the white male exceptionalist, shirking decorum and protocol, and imperialist interventionism against the threat posed by alternative economic systems of persons half a world away, as demonstrated in contemporary 80s penile metaphor, Rambo 3. We have seen the McClanes and their ilk win, in a sense, and in return, we find ourselves in the nightmare hellscape of our current shared reality. The Gremlins, however, desire nothing more than to upend the status quo with precision irony, with particular umbrage against the worst aspects of society. Futterman's xenophobia is dispatched with the lure of encroaching foreignness, and they repaired the very machine Futterman earlier blamed on the hypothetical gremlins he equated with all foreigners. Deagle's luxuriant excesses are the means of her dispatch, and she is literally thrown out of her home, reminiscent of her own figurative throwing out of tenants. As fans of story, we crave narrative justice. The Gremlins are a karmic balancing force, here to wreck the shit of Gordon Geckos and their truly carcinogenic 80s dudes. Just imagine a world where Rambo couldn't help with third world interventionism due to someone shooting off / eating all the munitions before the Mujahideen could ever be armed. Imagine a world where white racists have no cathartic power fantasy release for their grievances against real black heavyweight boxing champions because mogwai have eaten Rocky Balboa's shoes before dropping a frozen side of beef on his head. Imagine a world wherein Steven Seagal never has a film career because instead of getting off on intentionally hurting castmates with his flailing bullshit aikido, he spends his first film getting his doughy ass chased by a gremlin commandeered wheat thresher for 2 hours. Dare to dream. Dare to dream to believe in this better fictional world. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That was tremendous.
All right, you ready to reverse your decision, Miles?